Today I was meditating on what to teach you today, or what to share with you this morning. And what came to my heart was to talk about the law of attraction, the law of karma, the law of merit, the law of Dharma, which I'd say maybe you could translate that as the law of lessons, and the law of seva. Seva also can be translated as service. Does that sound interesting? Okay. Well, you are all very familiar with the law of attraction. And there's now books and movies about it out, all kinds of wonderful teachings, how to manifest, how to attract, all of these things. And this is very, very important, especially since we want to attract and manifest a positive, transformed world for ourselves and for everyone, right? I mean, that's really the whole point, you know. You can start off trying to attract little things, you know, physical things, material things, but eventually you learn that that's just the exercise to start learning how to attract the really important things, like attracting compassion, attracting wisdom, attracting spiritual power and creative ideas that can help you to transform the world. See, that's really the whole point of it. But we start off smaller. You know, how can I learn how to attract a nicer house or a car or a mate or whatever? And these are nice things. But these are really only to prepare you to learn how to attract the more important things that will benefit all beings. And that's why I love practicing in my own spiritual tradition of Buddhism, because in Buddhism, we make it a point never to forget that whatever we do is really for the benefit of all beings, not just for our self, our individual self. But I do believe that every tradition, if it's worth anything, has something of value. And I love the New Thought tradition. I love it so much. Maybe you could call me a New Thought Buddhist. So I love Center for Spiritual Living. I love Agape. I love Reverend Lee Wallach and Jean. I love you all. Because you are such beautiful lights in the world. And, you know, I love the musicians too. I wish we had that kind of music in Buddhism. It would make it a little bit more fun. But anyway, so we know about the law of attraction. We want to focus our mind and attention, put emotional energy to it, and willpower into it, and let it go and release it. And we know certain steps to do this, such as the spiritual mind treatment and the 5 steps. But I just want to share some things that you might not have heard. Or maybe you've heard them in different ways, but I'm going to share them in a little bit more of a Buddhist way. So, as many of you have found out, you may try to intend something, but it doesn't always seem to manifest, right? You may have an intention, but you don't seem to always be able to attract that, right? So I want to talk about some other laws that are also happening simultaneously. You see, it's too simplistic to say that the only law that really exists is the law of attraction, because that's not the case. There are several laws working at the same time to create reality, okay, to create your reality. Another law is the law of karma, which can be translated as the law of cause and effect, or the law of action. So based on whatever actions you have done in the past, in this lifetime, or before, if you believe that, or maybe if you don't believe in like personal past life, certainly you are the inheritor of the past actions of your parents and ancestors and culture and society, right? So we are the inheritors of all past actions, whether personally or collectively. That has a bearing on what happens to our reality. So if we have made it a habit of doing certain things that are negative, thinking negatively, speaking negatively, acting negatively, that creates a certain energy field. And that will block any intention you may have to attract, right? So does that make sense? So you have to not only work with the law of attraction, but also the law of karma, and think about all the things that you've done in the past or inherited from the past actions of others, and see how that's affecting you today. see how it's affecting the way you believe, the way you think, the way you speak, the way you act. Because we have to clean that up so that we don't create those unconscious or conscious blocks to our intentions. Okay. Now, I'm not going to go into all the details of karma because that would take forever, right? In fact, the Buddha said most people can't fully understand the whole physics of karma because it's really like vast and complicated. But it doesn't really matter. What matters is what can you understand that is applicable and practical today. That's really what matters. Of all the different spiritual teachings that have ever existed, you don't need to know all of them. Just what can you practice that's going to be applicable and relevant today. That's what matters. Okay, so we have the law of attraction, the law of karma. Now, along with the law of karma is something I like to call the law of punya, or law of merit. Now, this is a sort of a kind of karma, but merit is a specific, special kind of karma or action. Merit is the positive action that causes positive energy that is for spiritual awakening. So it's any kind of action that will add to the positive energy of helping others or yourself to become enlightened, to awaken. Because it's a little bit different from, say, other kinds of positive actions or karma. Because you might do positive things that will help you with material things, like, I don't know, just maybe if you might have positive karma in the area of wealth, for example, or financial material means. But there's also the kind of karma that's going to also help you and others develop spiritually as well, okay? And that's a special kind called punya, or merit. Now, this is very important because you may have cleaned up some of your negative karma, and you may have developed your mind through meditation or spiritual practices that help you to really focus and therefore make a strong intention to attract and manifest. But if you don't have the oomph of punya or merit, it may not have enough energy to carry out the manifestation. So punya, think of it as like your spiritual powerhouse, your storehouse of spiritual energy, okay? And you can create that spiritual energy through certain kinds of spiritual practices. You can do that through intensive, sincere prayer, very deep meditation, chanting. You can even infuse physical objects and physical sounds and even physical ideas with spiritual power. That's why Buddhists, we like to have, like, for example, mala beads, and these are for either meditation or chanting. And if you meditate with them, you can breathe with each bead, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out. And that takes about 10 minutes to go all the way around 108 beads. Now, and if you use it for chanting, you can chant something for 108 times at a minimum. So it could be something like Om Mami Devari, 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 Om Mami Devari. That's one particular chant that I love. It means, well, it's a very deep meaning, but I guess basically it means divine radiant love. So, and you all have a chant actually in the Science of Mind too. Repeat after me. There's only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. See, that's a wonderful affirmation and chant. You can do that 108 times. And actually, I created a little bit of a rhythm to it to make it into a chant-like song. I don't know if we'll have time to do that, maybe at the end if we have time. But anyway, you can infuse the chant, or whatever chant you choose, whether it's in a different language or in English. If you do it enough times, it has more power. Just saying it even one time, it's infused with all the energy of the times you've chanted it before. It's very powerful. And if you use meditation beads spiritually, you've infused the beads with your spiritual power. So sometimes it's sort of like Zen to go. If you don't have time to meditate or chant, just bring the beads along and hold them in your hand, and just feeling them with you, you can feel the infusion of the power. Also, maybe some of you can take some sort of special rock or crystal or something that's precious to you. If you meditate with it nearby or holding it, or if you chant with it or say your affirmations with it, you infuse it with your intention and your spiritual energy. And so, again, it's like Zen to go. If you don't have time to do the whole chanting and meditation, just grab it and put it near your heart or whatever. Just feel it and just take one in and out breath. So those are wonderful things. And actually, I know a monk who, because he's practiced so many prayers and meditations and chants with his beads, sometimes he'll use it as a way to touch someone in the hospital, just infusing them with healing energy. So you can do that. And of course, ultimately, you are the object of spiritual power. You are become the channel of spiritual energy, so that if you see yourself as a sacred being, as a sacred object, you see this body and this mind as sacred, and you practice infusing this body and mind with spiritual energy, then you become a walking, talking, breathing source of channel of love and light in the world. That's the whole point. So yeah, you can start off with beads, and you can start off with chants, and you can start off with crystals and whatever, but that's like exercising to prepare you so that you become yourself. This body is the beads. This body is the crystal. This body is the living chant, the living mantra. You see? So it's okay to start with these small things, but the point of them is like, they're practice for the real thing, which is you are. You are it. You see? You are the Buddha. So that's why in Buddhism, for example, we have a nice altar with flowers and candles and incense and maybe a Buddha statue or a nice painting, maybe of a Zen picture or something. And that's wonderful, and I love it. And I make sure every place I'm in, my office, my workplace, my home, always has an altar. I love that sort of practice. But the real point is you become the altar. Your heart is the altar. An altar that walks everywhere you go. You see? That's the point. But going back to my topic of the law of merit, we need to generate spiritual power. We need to do that through meditation and other spiritual practices to generate that power. That's why someone who knows about the law of attraction and maybe spiritual mind treatment and the 5 steps of affirmative prayer, I believe that someone who knows exactly the same things but also practices meditation regularly, I believe they're able to manifest and attract more powerfully than the one who only does just the affirmative prayer but not the meditation. Because by doing the meditation practice, you're adding spiritual energy. You're creating merit, positive spiritual energy that gives oomph to your prayer and intentions, you see. So in Buddhism, we stress a lot about merit, creating merit. And there's a lot of wonderful positive things you can do to create merit. Feeding monks is one way of creating good merit. Giving generously to a spiritual community creates positive spiritual merit. Anything that's going to add to something that helps awaken people to enlightenment is called merit. So even if you maybe don't have time to directly, let's say, go to a monastery for a month and meditate for a whole month or something, if you don't have time to do that, you can at least give money or food to the monks who do that. So you're creating merit, you see, because you're helping them to create the merit also. So we all share in the merit. And that's another wonderful concept in Buddhism. Merit isn't just limited to the individual, because Buddhists teach this teaching called non-self. And non-self does not mean that you don't exist. It means that the barriers of yourself and another are not solid, that we actually are one, and we are interconnected. So if you can create merit, guess what? Because you're not separate from everyone else, you can transfer that merit to others. So we can help each other create merit. So maybe you don't have time to speak in front of people and teach about enlightenment every week, right? Maybe that's not your calling in this life, But by coming and supporting the spiritual community and giving your donations and your time and energy and volunteerism to support that community, which supports the ministers who do that, then you are sharing in that merit. You share in the merit. You see? Yes. Oh, is it already 20 minutes? My goodness gracious. Okay. I got to hurry up and zenify this even more. All right. So I got 10 more minutes. All right. So law of attraction, the law of karma, and the law of punya to create that spiritual positive energy. Then there's also the law of dharma. Okay? And that is, you might think that, okay, why do bad things happen to me sometimes? Or why is this not working the way I want it to? You might, and then you hear about this Buddhist teaching about karma, and then you start getting really depressed. Because now you think, oh, great. It's because of everything I ever did in another life I don't even remember, and I'm just being punished for it in this lifetime, right? Some of you might think that way, but that's a really simplistic misunderstanding of the teaching of karma. So the law of dharma reminds us that things that happen to us is not just because we are getting the results of past actions. It's everything that we're experiencing now isn't just the consequence of previous action, of karma. Many times, what we're experiencing now has nothing to do with karma. It's not like we're being punished or anything like that. It's that we have lessons to learn. And so some of the challenges we face, it's not about, we did something bad, therefore we're going to experience that same bad thing that we did to someone else. It's not always about that. Many times it's just because we have lessons to learn in this life. So you may have chosen on some deep soul level that you may not be conscious of to learn the lessons of compassion, which might entail certain kinds of experiences that aren't so pleasant to learn how to be compassionate. Or your lesson might be about wisdom or, all kinds of different lessons on love, lessons on helping people, lessons on what it's like to go through challenges. Patience might be your lesson, Well, I'm sorry, but patience is never an easy one, okay? You can't really learn patience if you don't have some difficult circumstances. So if your soul chose these lessons, which I do believe that your soul does choose these things, then guess what? Whatever you're experiencing right now is exactly what you need to experience to learn your lessons. It might not always be easy, but take heart. We are here only to become Buddhas. Now, in your particular lingo, you might say you are here to express the divine fully in human form. So it's said in many different ways in different traditions. Okay, so do take heart that it may just be your lessons that you need to learn. And so try to learn them with an open heart, open mind, rather than complainingly, right? We don't want to do whining practice. Winners cannot be whiners. Whiners cannot be winners. I just came up with that one. That should be a bumper sticker. That must have been whispered to me from one of the spiritual guides. But anyway, thank you. Now, the last law before I close is the law of seva. And that is, many times also, you're going through a difficult experience, not because you necessarily attracted it, not because you necessarily deserve it because of past karma, not because it may be a lesson necessarily, but sometimes you're going through a challenging experience just because your soul wants to serve. And you're serving in an environment, in a circumstance that happens to be difficult. Because there's some part of you that is so full of light, so full of love, that you want to be light in the darkness. So maybe you find yourself born into a situation or maybe in this present time, you enter into a situation where there's a lot of chaos or a lot of sorrow, a lot of anger or violence around you. But you are there because of the law of seva, the law of service, because you want to be the light in that darkness. Because if you weren't there, it would be even more dark without you. So your soul chose to be in that difficult circumstance, to be at least give a little light in that darkness. So these are some laws that I've discovered in my own life and practice that are working simultaneously to co-create our reality. And it's not simplistic, is it? It's quite beautifully complex. Yeah. Beautifully complex. But the most important thing is to practice breathing in and breathing out. Come back to the present moment. Don't get lost in the future or the past. Embrace the future and the past in the present moment. And trust your inner guidance, because you are the light. And you are all Buddha babies in the making. Thank you.
I want to thank you for joining us today. I am so grateful that you took your time to watch or listen to this message. If you found this message beneficial, I would ask you to go to our website. Once there, click on the Contribute button and experience the joy of conscious and purposeful giving. It is through your gifts that we are able to bring this message to the world. I would also ask you to please share this message with anyone you feel might benefit. Again, I want to thank you for joining me and the Agape community as together we bring joy to life.